matupataritayate madhuksharanti sindavaha madve erna santoshadhehe madhunaktam utoshasi madhumatparthivagum rajaham madhudaurastu napita madhumanno vanaspatir madhumagumastu suryaham madvirgabau bhavantuna. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the winds blow sweetly. May the rivers flow sweetly. May days and nights be sweet to us. May the trees and plants be sweet to us. May the dust of the earth be sweet to us. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be blissful. Friends, I am happy to introduce to you again Swami Adiswarananda Ji Maharaj, head of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center, New York. The Swami was a very good writer and a wonderful speaker and a successful editor of the Prabuddha Bharata. Swami came to this country in 1968 as an assistant of Swami Nikhilananda, and after his passing away, Swami, in 1973, Swami became the head of that center. It is our golden jubilee, so we invited him to come, and he is very kind enough, cancelling his whole program. He has come to our center to participate in our golden jubilee. Swami gave a wonderful talk in the afternoon, in the noon, and this evening his topic is living in the world of reality. Swami Adiswarananda.
I am very grateful to Swami Chitanananda Ji Maharaj for kindly inviting me to his center and give me the opportunity to participate in these Golden Jubilee celebrations and programs. Swamiji is always very kind. In India we work together, and we have many memories of being together. So by coming here, apart from participation in the program, I got the opportunity to revive and reinforce my old memories of my brother and to see him. I also thank all of you for being here this evening. The subject is living in the world of reality. It will center around the question, the problem of suffering. First point we need to focus that life is not what it appears. An ancient sage was asked once, what is the meaning of life? Why are we born? Why we die? To that he said, the meaning is a person is born, he lives, he dies. It appears different, though. Another great teacher said that man is born crying, he lives complaining, he dies disappointed. Indeed, we cannot deny the fact. The poet tells us in different language. Those of you know Gray's elegy tells us life is, don't tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. But the philosopher in Shakespeare, he talks in a different way. Life is a sad tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Perhaps Shakespeare's philosopher is right, because he knows. Perhaps he has experienced. We begin our life as optimists. Average person after the age of 30, he or she thinks he or she is immortal. By the time the person reaches 40, begins to develop the doubt about the concept. By the time he becomes 50, he disbelieves it. It is like that old story that 3 stages of life. First, you believe in Santa Claus. Second stage, you disbelieve Santa Claus. Third stage, you become Santa Claus, Christmas time. Or another person said, there are 3 stages of life: childhood, youth, and you are looking fine. That is the modern American division of the 3 stages. But yet, the philosopher of Shakespeare's character tells us that it is different. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Hence the story goes, the flow of life. What is the meaning? We are born, we live, we die. Our optimism turns into pessimism, hope into despair, fulfillment into disappointment. St. Louis is in the Mark Twain country. Mark Twain said that if a person, when he reaches 48, if he still continues to be optimist, he has known very little about life. And if before 48 he develops pessimism, that means he has known too much. There is a great element of truth. Bhagavad Gita tells us life is a battleground of 2 forces, desirable, undesirable. What we want, we do not get. What we get, that is not enough. Even when we get enough, we feel we are unhappy because our neighbors have more than what we have. The great Buddha said that the tears which fell from human eyes, if those tears could be kept collected from the beginning of creation, it would exceed all the waters of the ocean. The message is, there is sorrow, suffering. This is great Buddha's first noble truth, that there is sorrow and suffering, that there is a cause of suffering, that this malady is curable, and the noble eightfold path he suggested as a remedy. Like a physician of the soul, first made a diagnosis, then came prognosis. Prognosis is, case is not hopeless, it is curable. If the case is hopeless, then we do not need a doctor. Then the cure, that there is sorrow. He said that this is a noble truth. Why? Why to know this noble truth? Because we discover, the Upanishads tell us that it is a place where it's a mixture of truth and reality, twilight. The good and evil, Bhagavad Gita points out, they follow each other. That is, happiness and misery, light and darkness, birth and death, health and disease. One follows the other. Sorrow is the message. Then question comes, why we suffer? If sorrow is the message, what can we do about it? Now, usual responses, before we go to this question, usual responses of the average mind to the question of suffering is giving in to hopelessness and despair, which is a form of escape, or escaping downward, giving up, quitting. The fox in Aesop's fable said grapes are sour, therefore he quit. Third is escaping sideways, rationalizing it, cultivating art, architecture, aesthetics, not thinking of the question, avoiding. The first one, despair and hopelessness, we weep and wail. Answer does not come. Shankaracharya in his Question of Discrimination tells us that until the truth is known, even in billions of years, there will be no end of sorrow. Bhagavad Gita tells us this is Maya Durattaya, difficult to cross. Buddhistic literature tells us that this is sorrow. It is in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. Sky is overcast all the time, occasional flashes of sunshine. Yet we are quite contented and happy. So response is, those who give in, they break down. It's a form of committing suicide. Give up. Those who give up, they're haunted by it. It is the usual rule. Anything which you crave for and you give up, you will be pursued by that very thing more. When a desire is suppressed or repressed, clubbed down, it goes underground or in the background and starts guerrilla war. Because it heightens the awareness of the object craved for. So that is also not giving us a solution. Escaping sideways, rationalizing it, it does not help. We may do not want to face the question, but the question does not leave us. Examples of rationalization in modern times, in modern societies, we do not like to say, call spade spade. When a person gets a little elderly, we do not want to call the person old. It is blasphemous, seditious, and an ugly word. You call the old person senior citizen. We call the lavatories as restrooms, as if there are sofas, couches are there. Then also, in modern times, the word senior citizen is also not very likable word. They have come up with an improved version. Citizens of longer living. That gives us some feeling. We do not want to face the question. Death, if you talk about it, people will think you are morbid, pessimistic. People wear T-shirt with smile. We want. If you ask a person, even when he is miserable, he will say, I'm fine. I'm awfully fine. We exaggerate our terms to forget. Until recently, even when a patient used to die in the hospital, doctors used to tell, you are looking fine, you are making progress, you look brighter. Often they give hope. Oh, in 3 days, you will get out of the hospital and you will go, but does not say where you will go. into the morgue or home. That part they keep quiet. Now they have come up that no, you spell the thing out in the very beginning. Why? This cheap adulation of a particular segment of life, as if youth is the only covetable phase of life. Childhood has no meaning, middle age has no meaning, old age has no meaning. That is a concept of our modern industrial culture. Either you must produce utilities or consume utilities. If you are not either, you are no better than a tissue paper to be thrown away. Values are judged in terms of material attainments and possessions. So therefore, none of the three escape routes really help us escape. What we can do then? If giving in is not possible, giving up is also not possible, escaping is also not possible, Vedantic literature tells us, face it, face the brute. Question comes, why we suffer? One question is luck. That which is fated cannot be blotted. But then, the other party says that luck, Sanskrit word is adrishtam, which is unseen, we didn't know. If everything is luck, then all preordained and destined, then we have to mount on the scaffold and put on the noose and say a goodbye to this much ado world. That is not a solution. If you say chance, science will disagree. Nothing happens by chance. You get what you deserve. Nature knows you better. So therefore, chance is not the right word. There also, if it is chance, then there is no use making any self-improvement, self-endeavor. Third is the will of God. If it is the will of God, then how do we logically reconcile the fact that God is all-merciful? Why, being all-merciful God, He will inflict suffering on His own created beings? That militates against the view that God is all-merciful and compassionate. He will be whimsical God. He punishes some and rewards others. So we cannot call this due to God, will of God we suffer. Some bear with the suffering, hoping to have compensation and readjustments after death in heaven. But, in the morning I pointed out, there is no heavenly solution to the earth's sufferings. There is a story that contact with the heaven. You know, the Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and President Carter, they were good friends. When Begin visited, President Carter received him in the White House intimately, and he had 3 telephones, one white, one red, and one black. So Begin asked, Mr. President, what these 3 telephones are for? He said, one is with my defense secretary, other is chief of staff, and other is a direct hotline with God. Obviously, the conversation, yes, please, the red one is for God. So, Mr. President, how much does it cost to make a call? He said, about $1,000 per call per minute. Whatever it is, he said, time passed. In future, President Carter visited Israel. Begin received him in the same way. In the same way, he had 3 telephones. Same way, he said, one is to my parliamentary secretary, other is my defense secretary, the other is direct connection with the Lord. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, how much does it cost per call? He said, 50 cents per minute. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, what do you say? In America, everything is so expensive. Begin said, Mr. President, you're forgetting, this is a local call. And you are... Your call is a long-distance call. But I am in Israel, in Jerusalem. This is a local call. So this local call, or long-distance call, does not help. even being nearer to heaven, nearer to the great temple of truth. So therefore we cannot say it is God's will, or we can avoid it. Then comes the question, then what it is? If it is not a chance, if it is not a luck, if it is not the will of God, it is not the freak of circumstances, then how do we explain? Here, the great philosophers of Sankhya and Vedanta and Yoga system, they come. They give us an analysis which is very scientific and objective. Is a cause of suffering is first is cut off from the real, unable to live in the world of reality. The first, it says avidya. Avidya means blocks off the view of reality. Avidya brings into the picture or manifests itself in the second as ego, exaggerated ego, osmita, I consciousness, I. Bhagavad Gita tells us there are three kinds of egos. Dark ego, rajasic ego, which is what you call intoxicated, sattvic ego, mature ego. Dark ego is always lives on self-incrimination. I am nothing, I cannot do anything, nobody likes me. But one thing is that I, all the phases. The person takes delight, I am being, I am nothing. Infantile ego, not born as yet, part of the mass thinking, always looking for a hired hand. Second type of ego, rajasic ego, intoxicated, I am everything. One is the opposite of the other. I can do everything. Both egos are highly exaggerating that which is dual aspects of life. It is polarizing the same indivisible into division. Ego's world is a world of problem. Ego loves problem. If we solve all the problems, an egotistic person will drop dead. That's why the Freudians said, never solve all the problems of a person. Keep one or two. They use that as a cane. Because if there is no problem, what he will live with? A person worries. First worries about himself, about worries and others. Then if he has nothing to worry, then he thinks what to worry about. He looks for worry. This is ego. He wants to divide the indivisible, accomplish that which is impossible, lives in want, waste, worry. Ego. Ego lives with attachment, aversion, raga, desha, two Sanskrit words. Raga is emotional imbalance, delusion. Desha is repulsion. He selects some and get attached. Third is abhinivesha, clinging. He does not move on. He gets stuck. He becomes hooked. So therefore, 5 causes being said. But the root cause is a lapse from the real. This will bring us to the next question. What is the real? For us, anything which we see is real. But the Sankhya philosopher said that, no, that which is real is different from what we think. For an average person, sky is blue, it is real. Table is a table. The sun moves around the earth. We are perceiving it. But scientists tells us that is not true. Sky is not blue. It looks blue because of the dust. For an average person, table is a table. Podium is a podium. A scientist will tell us it's a mass of electrical charges, whirling atoms. The sun does not move around the earth. Earth moves around the sun. For 500 years we believed, until Kepler and Galileo came. And it took another 150 years to convince us really that Earth moves around the sun. This is our condition. So what we will take? That which I perceive is real? Or there is something else? The Upanishads speak of two faces of the real. One is absolute, the other is relative. One is being designated as Brahman, absolute real, which is real for all time. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, unchanging. The other is changing, which is relative. When you say relatively true, you always look for absolute. When you say this person is my relative, you can make a counter question. Who is the absolute in the family? This is relative absolute. When you say this is my home, that is relative home. What is the real home? Father, mother, relations, they are relatively true. There is real father, real mother. In this way, if we go on from more relative to most relative, ultimately we reach absolute. When you say, utter the prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, then why we do not want to go to our real Father? Why we are busy with the foster father? Why we are on a vacation, living in a temporary residence? In ancient times in Arabia, a mystic came. He was a wanderer. And the Sultan, he came to the palace of the Sultan. And he was wearing rags, dirty looking. He sent word to the security men that whether His Majesty would allow him to spend one night in this inn, like motel. Sultan, when he heard, he became furious that this man dares call this palace an inn or a motel. Bring him, I'll punish him. When he came, he said, you dare call my palace an inn? He said, Your Majesty, may I ask you a question? Who used to live in this palace before you? He said, my father. He said, before him, my grandfather. Who will be here after you? He said, my son. He said, did I say anything wrong? Nobody is permanent in this palace. Everybody comes, lives here for temporary time, and goes away. Is it not an inn or a motel? Similarly, then if that is temporary, what is my permanent home? Permanent home is where you don't have to change. You won't be threatened by the landlord, 10% increase in rent, and so forth. In this way, the reality has two faces. One is absolute, the other is relative. Relative is a mixture of absolute and little imagination. How do you divide the indivisible? Times, how do you count time, which is timeless? How do you dissect that which is incorporeal and immutable? There is no way. Only there is one way, by imagination. Nobody can stop you from imagining. So therefore, this imagination is called relative. When imagination and reality, they mix, they bring the relative world. Imagination, another name of it is called fantasy. Another name of fantasy is desire. Desire is a very basic ingredient of life. If we don't have desire, there is no embodied existence. Fantasy or relativity is for enjoyment. In absolute, there is no enjoyment. It is all God, all true, all perfect. If all of us become perfect, that will be the end of the world. Swami Vivekananda says, if we all attain perfection, from the next moment we will be like Egyptian mummies, lying in glass cases, looking toward each other, nothing to say. That's the perfection. end of the world. So absolute cannot be enjoyed. But life requires enjoyment. So the relative came. From out of timeless, we invented time. And out of spaceless, we created space. Movement, measure. All the things came. How? By imagining and putting a name and form. Purpose of relativity is enjoyment, which the Upanishads call, and other texts, Maya, is delusion. Delusion is forgetfulness of one's own nature. It is normal for an average person daily, once in a while, to forget, become foolish. To become fool once or twice daily is normal. But if a person is fool all the time, he is a damn fool if he forgets about himself. So therefore, it says, we cannot afford to be damn fool. Little foolishness, called delusion. Hence it comes. The core question of life, and to answer to the question of suffering, is how to deal with delusion. Fantasy. Fantasy we need. If it is too much, we end up in the lunatic asylum. If it is too little, then you become a mystic wrapped in silence, in contemplation. You cannot be used for the world. But to keep the world going, we need both charlatans and fools. So therefore, we have to bring both. How can a person become foolish? So delusion comes. Delusion is desiring, weaving dreams, imagining. Some of the facts of life, it is like a magical show. When you go to a magical show, we do not expect the real there. What do we see? Is it unreal? No. We buy a $25 ticket, we go there, magician with a chainsaw is hacking a woman into two pieces. We see Shiva scream. What is that we see? If you say that is untrue, then you would not go to see the magical show in a magical hall. You can imagine at your home, sitting in your parlor, close your eyes. You cannot say that is true. If it is true, you would not buy a ticket to go to and watch a murder scene. Then what it is? It's a twilight of reality and fantasy, imagination. That makes it enjoyable. Another example. I invite you for a dinner. Instead of serving you different menus, I kept few pills. Pill carbohydrate, pill protein, pill amino acid, and so forth. I do not set the table, I just place 5 pills. You say, Swami, you are just cheating us. I'll say, no, I'm being very scientific. Your body needs this much amount of protein carbohydrate. Why you have to spend time, cook, do shopping is not a simple process. Even if I give you extra protein, body will exit. This is the most scientific and proper method. But there is no enjoyment. Same pill every day. But next time I give you, instead of giving you protein, I give you tofu, chicken, same protein you are drawing today from this source, that source, this source, it becomes enjoyable. What I am doing it, I am changing form. Body is receiving the pure protein. And that has nothing to do with the soybean or tofu. So therefore, by changing form, texture, and I am putting an imagination into it. And it makes the thing enjoyable. Time is enjoyable, timeless is enjoyed as time. Spacelessness enjoyed as space. We think the sky inside this hall is limited. Imagination is a very basic ingredient of life. Without imagination, there is no living, no individual existence. So therefore, how to handle this imagination and delusion? He says that You can do that only by keeping contact with the real. Real we need. This keeping contact with the real, you will find, is to be done in everyday life. By our daily spiritual practices, contemplation, prayer, we keep contact with the real. If we must live in the world of delusion, we must guard ourselves. Maya has power. Maya, when cut off from the real, relative, when cut off from the absolute, it becomes destructive. Time, when cut off from the timeless, it is tyrannizing. If I must live in the world of delusion, have truth, I must keep in contact with the absolute, which the different texts tell us God. But simply by thinking does not do. Living in the world of delusion, we become hooked to it. We become addicted to it. This delusion, it continues. And it must be kept controlled. You know, psychoanalysts are called head shrinkers because the head has swelled due to extra imagination and fantasy. They bring it down. So therefore, we need not only check-up, they say that we also need check-up from the neck up. That is something. Okay, occasionally check-up from the neck up is needed, how much head has shrunken or it has swelled. That is to cut the delusion to the size. We must have, but we must not get addicted. Give you an example. A father comes home and he rings the bell. As he enters the home, his wife is to greet him and his little poodle would come out to greet. But the man was having difficulty for some time. He came to the doctor. He said, "Doctor, I have a problem. My wife is to greet me with the slippers, my slippers bringing, and my little poodle will bark to greet me. But the last 2 weeks the role has reversed. My wife barks and the little poodle brings the slippers." The doctor said, "So what? You are getting the same services." Now, there is a point in question he made. The man lost sense of value. He took it for granted. He lost sense of value. So the doctor said, "You are getting the same services. What is the missing here? You are getting your slippers, you are getting your barking." But it is coming through different sources. Here is the point, that there is some element which comes from human emotions which cannot be replaced, but we must know. The other. A father comes home, he likes his little son to ride on his back and he becomes a horse. And he goes around his room. He enjoys. Meanwhile, the son, getting bigger, he does not like to ride, but the father wants him to ride. It's a problem. Son does not want. He got addicted. This is called Maya, addiction to Maya. And it has layers and layers and layers. Imagination is that. A lady called up the doctor. That is a serious problem. Last night, my husband, while sleeping, he always sleeps with his mouth open. A mouse has entered into the mouth. Doctor said, "Don't worry, don't get excited. You take a piece of fish and wave in front of his mouth, sleeping." "I'm coming soon." Doctor came, he saw the lady, instead of piece of fish, she took a piece of cheese and waving in front of the face of the sleeping husband. He said, "What you are doing?" He said, "Doctor, I have to get the cat out first, because following the mouse, the cat also entered." Now, these are the things. With one imagination, you get another imagination out. So therefore, to keep contact with the real. In order to keep the relative time, space, causation under control, name and form, I must keep control, keep contact with the Absolute. Living in the world of reality, I must live in the world of reality. That when wealth and prosperity, they are not for the absolute real, they degenerate, they breed delusion. What for I am having? Moral perfection, when it is not for this self-awareness, which is the absolute, it heightens ego, an enlightened ego. Art and aesthetics, when they do not reflect this great, all-pervading self, it degenerates into promiscuity. Knowledge of science and technology, when they are not for this knowledge of the self, which is the contact with the Absolute, they become dangerous weapons of self-destruction. The Upanishads tell us this self, the absolute reality, is our very being, the ground. This self is to be enjoyed. That is our real home, real identity, real place. Hence, to keep the world of delusion and imagination under control, we must daily keep in touch with that real. How? This we do in our daily contemplation. When you daily contemplate, what do we do in our state of contemplation and meditation? We withdraw from the world of wakeful memories, dream state, deep sleep. We enter to the fourth dimension of our being. We voluntarily withdraw. This has been called diving deep. This diving deep, each time I dive, I am a mystic. Each time I resurface, I bring a message. This self is being called a philosopher's stone. Each time I contact, I undergo transformation. I am not the same person. Because reality is both light and fire. It is as fire, it burns the delusions. As Bhagavad Gita says, Gyanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. The fire of knowledge burns everything into ashes. Because it burns, it illumines. It makes us see things in proper light, which is being called the light of the inner self. It's a spiritual light. We perceive things in physical light, emotional light, light of fantasy, light of reality. So therefore, we are being asked here to take a dive deep, resurface, bring that message. In that context of that message, you live in the world. Live in this world, one Upanishad says, 100 years. It doesn't matter. But live, being anchored in this inner self. But this anchoring does not happen simply by telling. You cannot meditate unless you discriminate. Discrimination is that you separate yourself, then you put your mind on. It has layers and layers of things. It cannot be done hastily. Delusion makes us do hasty things. And we repent. Discrimination holds the key, makes us analyze immediate and ultimate. Delusion or fantasy makes us drawn toward the immediate result and gain. Discrimination teaches us to see the ultimate. Let me tell you a story. In the Jewish societies, in the olden times, they used to have marriage made by the matchmakers, probably you know. So one person who did not marry when he reached about 45 or 50, he all of a sudden it occurred to him he should marry. And as the thought came, he said he should marry as soon as possible. He became so impatient. Then he appointed a matchmaker and promised him a good discount. He said, in 3 days, you must get somebody whom I can marry. If you can bring somebody, select in 3 days, you get 60% commission. For each successive day, you will lose 20%. The matchmaker, seeing this a big client, he began to move heaven and earth. Finally, he selected a girl. Arrangement was done, the final interview being done here. When this man came along with the matchmaker and met the girl, this man became furious. The matchmaker was sitting by his side. He said, "You fool, you cheated me. This girl is sandy-haired, knock-kneed, squint-eyed, and you said this is good. Are you not ashamed?" The matchmaker said, "You can speak loud, she is deaf too." She is deaf too, you can speak loud. So this is called hastily being drawn by delusion. So there he is unable to discriminate. So therefore he was going to be a victim. So therefore delusion is kept under control by knowing this thing, keeping contact to the consequences, the ultimate. So dive deep, it is being said. If you say it is difficult, I will say you have to do it. Teacher asked, "Little boy, George Washington cut the cherry tree and admitted to his father doing it. Why his father did not punish him?" The boy said, "Because George still had the axe in his hand." Now here he is answering from his point of view. So similarly, when the mind goes toward delusion, we can tell the axe is there in the hand. The threat of the immediate and the ultimate, the pull of the immediate, the threat of the ultimate, hold the balance. So therefore, if you are to live in the world of reality, you must live first in you. World of reality is there outside, but you see, perceive things according to what you think of yourself. Do you think the real in you? Because in what level you live, physical level, mental level, emotional level, or spiritual level. Two things are there to know, evaluate the value of a philosophy: desire and death. Desire, how to keep them in right size, and death, how to face. Abhayam, Sanskrit word, fearless against death, is the measure of success of a spiritual doctrine. Overcoming fear. About the fear, a Bertrand Russell will say, well, this is inevitable, we must accept it. A Zeno, he may show apathy. A Schopenhauer, he will say, this is a logical necessity. But life is not a cold logic. A Omar Khayyam will say, why think of death when there is so much sweetness around? The Freud will say, why sitting in a blind, dark lane, weeping and wailing where there is nobody to answer? Accept the inevitable. Vedanta says, none of these are really facing the question. You face it. Who dies? What is death? Why death is so much threatening? Because you have not prepared yourself for it. You avoided thinking of death until the age of 60. Society told us not to think of it. That is morbid. Then, after 60, all the thoughts piled together, they're coming in big volumes. Nobody told us to get prepared. I am overwhelmed. So therefore, death and desire, which is part of the relative existence, they must be faced. Death is a change. Death is a creative crisis. We are dying every day. In our ideas, in our physical particles, in our blood cells, red cells, we are dying. This, when we learn, make death as part of life, it becomes enjoyable. If we avoid that, it will be a threat. When you discover that I am separate from myself, different from my mind, different from my thoughts, I am pure being, then death applies to the body, mind, not to the self. Only by this it can be avoided. Anything in this world which is loved, coveted, cherished, not for the sake of self, Upanishad says, that will be the cause of sorrow. The great Yajnavalkya telling, a woman sent Gargi, oh Gargi, a mortal creature being born who lives by without knowing the imperishable, returned to the world of perishables again and again. In the Katha Upanishad, death telling Nachiketa that what is here, that is there. That is, what is here on earth, that is there in heaven. One who does not know this self, again and again comes to my sway. The Katha Upanishad gives us the analogy. Atmanang rathinang viddhi, sharirang ratham evatu, buddhing tu sharathing viddhi, manah pragraham evacha. His body is like a vehicle, chariot. This Atman is a master. It is running on the highway of sense objects, and it is drawn by horses which are turbulent. Buddhi, discriminatory intellect, is guiding it. When the horse is strong, the intellect, discriminatory intellect, that is, who can discriminate between the immediate and ultimate, unless it is strong, it will never reach the destination. So therefore, to know this Atman is being said. To feel it, actualize it. But we only read varieties of books. Upanishad is telling you must dive. You must contact the real. You must not read about it only. A man came to a doctor's office. Doctor examined him. He said that in my whole life I never saw such a dirty, smelly person coming to my office. Get out from here. Why did you come here? He said, well, it's so funny. My country doctor also told me like this, that I'm smelly and dirty. He said, why did you come here? He said, I just wanted a second opinion. Now, this is also our habit. We are collecting second opinion, but simply opinion is not realization. I must do it. So therefore, if I am to live in the world of reality, kindle the fire inside you. The fire of self-awareness. Kindle that fire. Second, keep that fire going by feeding it with fuel. What is the fuel? Self-control, austerity, charity, compassion to living beings. These are its fuel. By these fuels, this fire is kept up. Here you see that lamp is burning. That is the symbol of that self-awareness. It is said in one text, when the mountain is on fire, all the birds and beasts who live in that mountain, they leave that mountain. Similarly, where this light of self-awareness has been kindled, all delusions will leave that place. It cannot remain. Because as a fire it will burn, as a light it will illumine. So therefore, kindle that fire. Feed that fire daily. Each time, day, when you sit down to pray, meditate, you are really feeding that fire with fuel. You read in the Upanishads, worship of fire, that is that fire. Fire is the symbol of self-awareness. Then, maintain or balance your spiritual budget if you want to live in the world of reality. Our daily contact with the world of imagination, fantasy, we have to do. Sometimes for the sake of job, this is the world of fantasy. Living in the world of fantasy, we completely become lost. If you talk too much with people for whom desire is up to the throat, ambition is God, money is worship, you will imbibe those things, you will be infected. How do you immune yourself? You budget. If you talk with those people, you need to daily talk with some people who say, no, this is false. That is not true. We need to mix with level-headed, pure, moral people in our daily life. That is called budget. If I talk too much in other things, I need to chant something reminiscent of the self, which is called, the Sanskrit called mantras. Mantras are nothing uncommon. Everybody is uttering mantra. Some uttering money mantra, some uttering food mantra, some luncheon mantra, dinner mantra. If I must, this mantra must counterbalance. So therefore, thought, word and deed, that habits, delusions of the body must be meted out with counter physical habits. Words should be controlled by words, teeth by teeth, thought by thought. In unified way, this contact with the real. In India, there is a proverb that if you are a school teacher for 12 years, a person who is a school teacher for 12 years, he becomes a donkey. Now, I asked a very knowledgeable man in India that why this is so. He said to me that if you remain with students of lesser flight of mind, kindergarten, your flight of mind become what you call depleted. If you move around with people always saying yes, 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 flatterers will never tell you right, hesitate, you do not know where you stand. So therefore, they lose the flight of their mind. One of our devotees told me that she left the job on the 11th year, hearing that proverb, and became afraid that after 11 years job as a teaching. So therefore, daily contact with this. Budget, our spiritual thought, word and actions must be done daily. Often, we try to make it up in weekend. Many people think we'll do when we retire. One cannot do that. This cannot be done by cynicism or by make-believe, or it cannot be given to us by anybody. World of Maya, we cannot fight. We cannot escape. We must face. It will come in a different way. A young man, Italian-American, and he grew up to be a young man, was doing a good job, made money. He wanted to visit his home country. He was born here, the country of his parents. So he came to an Italian barber to have a haircut. And, the barbers are a little talkative. So by the by came that why he was having a haircut. He said, well, he wanted to see his homeland, visit Rome. He said, Italian barber also was Italian. And he said, you couldn't find another country to visit other than Italy. That's the hopeless of all countries. He said, by the by, which airline you are taking? He said, Alitalia. That's the worst airline I know, the barber said. It is not on time, it has always delay, mechanical problems, and old engines. He said, by the by, when you are going in Rome, in which hotel you would be staying? So he mentioned the hotel. He said, that is the worst hotel I know. I am from there, that the rooms are seedy and the food is moldy and so forth and so forth. Then he said, what other program you have? He said, well, I like to go and see the Pope also. He said, forget about it. Nobody can go half a mile near him. And you made a very wrong choice, and you will realize and repent when you come back, and I will be the witness. However, the young man had his haircut, went on a trip. After about a month, he came back when he needed second haircut. He came to the barber. Barber was with glee waiting. He said, how? He said, no. Alitalia was a very fine airline. It was on time. The food was good. Waitresses were pleasant. He said, how about the hotel? He said, hotel also charged much less and very cordial. He said, by the by, did you ever get to see the Pope? He said, yes, I went, although it must struggle. When I went near the Pope, fortunately that day, I prostrated myself, and then Pope embraced me, but whispered into my ear, son, my son, who gave you this lousy haircut? This is the world of Maya. This man was trying to cut off everything. Maya came back in a back door. So Vedanta says, if this is the world of Maya, know Maya as a mask of Brahman, mask of God. If you forget that, you'll be a victim to this. So long you know the mask of God, the mask of Brahman, Maya is disarmed. Christ said, those who live by sword are perished by that sword. Vedanta says, those who live by false images, they die in unmaking that false image and making it true. World of reality, it is always real. To balance between the world of fantasy, imagination, desire, and the world of absolute, that is the goal. When the relative world is known as a reflection of the absolute, this very earth turns into heaven. Good and evil, their polarization disappear. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that which was appearing as a framework of delusion turns into a mansion of mirth. Thank you very much.
We are very thankful to the Swami for his illuminating and thought-provoking lecture. I remember once I was invited to give a lecture in an all-faith church in Los Angeles. So one of my brother monks said, Swami, never speak more than 20 minutes in a Protestant church. Why? In our temple we speak 1 hour. Oh no, Swami, 20 minutes, that is too much. 15 to 20 minutes maximum you can speak. But when I was listening to Swami, I feel that I can listen 2-3 hours, which is so interesting and so inspiring. So I thank you everybody to come and listen to the Swami. Thank you. Good night.